Hi everyone, welcome to another Hometown Mentors video. I'm Peyton.
And I'm Yosef.
So last time we talked about a plethora of different standardized tests, and today we're going to talk about specific strategies for taking those tests. And the best tip we can recommend is to take multiple practice tests.
You know, the ACT and SAT, they're actually a test of endurance. Because the longest test you've probably taken in high school was maybe like an hour and a half long. But with the SAT and SAT, if you're taking the essay as well, it could be as long as 3 hours and 50 minutes long. So, you got to build stamina.
Yeah, and to touch on stamina again, you definitely want to take these practice tests like Yosef said. So you are just used to sitting down in an environment for that long and used to concentrating for that long. And another thing about standardized tests is that they have the same level of difficulty from test to test. So as you take more practice tests, you'll be able to understand the test more, understand different patterns more, and be able to focus more while taking the test. And your brain will just be more accustomed to that sort of test.
Yeah, this means the ACT given in December is going to be no harder and no easier than the test given in April. The people who make the test in December are going to make the same test in April. So since they have to make it with the same level of difficulty, you can kind of notice patterns about how they ask questions.
Yeah, and with the questions, they're going to be the same level of difficulty, even though they'll change from like passage to numbers. And even if you feel like one test is harder than the other, chances are it's not. But one thing you might want to review is like the type of questions they have and your strengths on those questions. And additionally, one thing we can recommend is that you have a stimulating test environment when you're taking these tests.
By simulating a test environment, we mean to apply all the test constraints that you would have in a regular exam. So in a regular exam, you wouldn't be able to pull out your phone and check Instagram. On a regular exam, you wouldn't be able to take unlimited time for each section. So when you're taking your test, turn off all electronics and time yourself for each section.
And a good idea would be to go to a library or some environment where there isn't a lot of noise, similar to the classroom or wherever you'll be taking the test, and just block out about 4 hours to really just sit down and take it. And then you also want to make sure that you're going over the test very closely to the time after you took it, and that's just to make sure that the questions and the language used is just fresh in your mind, because that'll really help you when you're trying to work through those problems and understand concepts that you didn't quite understand while you were taking the test.
When you're going over your test, it would be helpful to use many different colors to grade your answers. For example, you can mark all your arithmetic errors with a blue color, and then maybe you can use green to mark all of your errors that involved grammar rules, so that when you're going back over it, if you see like a lot of green colors on your test, that's a hint to you to say like, oh, maybe you should practice your grammar rules more.
Exactly. You definitely want to keep track of the types of questions you're getting wrong, because in some cases you might just grade yourself and realize you got a certain score and just take it again and expect to see like certain improvements. But if you don't know exactly the type of questions that you were getting wrong, it's going to be hard to see those improvements. And also it'll just be more efficient for you if you're not reviewing everything all at once for another test and reviewing the specific things that you noticed you had to work on. So for instance, like Yosef mentioned, if you realize you're getting a lot of questions wrong with grammar, specifically like semicolons, you're going to want to review the rules for semicolons before you take your next test.
With practice tests, it's not only about quantity, but it's also about quality. It doesn't help to just, crank out practice test after practice test. After you take a practice test, review what you did wrong, review how you can improve before moving on to the next test. And there's a lot of ways you can access practice tests. If you don't have the money to purchase it online, you could also go to your local library, or maybe your college counselor may have some books lying around that they can lend you.
For the books that have practice tests, normally they're going to have about 4 practice tests and the answers in the back, which is very helpful. And sometimes you can find questions online, but you really want to make sure that whatever questions you're doing, you can find the answers to, because that's just going to be immensely helpful to you when you're trying to figure out what you did right and wrong. And also, College Board has partnered with Khan Academy to create a book that's very helpful for students, and it has about 8 practice tests in it.
The thing I really liked about Khan Academy is it gave you personalized test practice resources. For example, if I was having trouble with historical readings, then it would give me a subset of historical reading questions. We talked about earlier, if you were having trouble with the use of semicolons, it would give you a subset of questions about using semicolons. So it's personally tailored to fit your needs.
And in general, Khan Academy has many videos that you can watch online that will help you. And there are also a number of different resources out there as far as videos and tests go. And you can also take a course. The thing about courses, though, as far in person or online courses, is that they tend to be very expensive, and sometimes they can be a little unnecessary if you feel like you don't need that. So just a book that you work through can be immensely cheaper and can help you a lot through your trials of trying to score well on this test.
Yeah, and using books are a inexpensive way. And something else about Khan Academy is that there's different levels, right? So if you're doing, let's refer to the semicolons question. If you're not doing well using semicolons, then you'd be at a level 2, and it would give you somewhat easy questions about using semicolons. Then, as you get better and better with using semicolons, you would rise to level 3, and you would keep increasing your level, and it would give you harder and harder questions until you master the topic. So it's a very inexpensive way. It's a very inexpensive way to practice. And, also look out, because sometimes they host free, mock exams, or, they usually host, community mock exams that are inexpensive that I'd suggest you go to.
Also, keep in mind when you're taking this test that if your scores fluctuate, that's very common. It's common for you to score high on one section and low on another and have those sections inverse as far as your scores go. And that can be very frustrating, but it's very common, and it's even common when you're taking the SAT or ACT for real. Keep in mind that you can send all of your scores to colleges, and some colleges even super score, which means they take your highest score from all your tests together. And also, a strategy that you could use is that when you're taking a test, focus on one specific type of questions, like within a math section. That could be helpful. But overall, just don't get discouraged or frustrated if 1, your scores aren't as high as you would like them to be, or 2, they tend to fluctuate. And as long as you're putting in quality effort, your scores should rise while you're taking the tests.
And if your scores aren't rising the way you expect them to, don't be bogged down about that, because don't let your scores determine your self-worth. At the end of the day, a score is just a score, right? You are an amazing person outside of your scores. So, don't let a bad grade bring you down, right?
For sure, I would definitely echo what Joseph just said. And thank you all for joining us today.